Thank you for joining us today. The two of us would like to share our stories with you. I lost my son Dustin in July of 2004. I am the national president for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. My name is Colleen Sheehy Church. So all of us have a story, and I will tell you mine about Dustin. 18 years old, typical Friday night, they go out for pizza with friends. When they get back into the vehicle after having their pizza, Dustin was seatbelted and he was sober, but the two in the front seat were impaired. The car unfortunately went out of control, speeding, ended up going over a cliff 35 feet in the air and landed in a river. The two in the front that were impaired were able to get out, but for whatever reason, they were not able to go down and get Dustin and help him out of the vehicle, the back seat. I can't imagine, but for 10 minutes that Dustin tried. Every time he breathed, he just ingested more water, that he tried to kick the windows, that he did anything that he could to get out of that car, that he really struggled to live. I lost my son on July 10th, 2004. He drowned. I'd like to introduce you, John, and let him tell you his story. John.
Thank you, Colleen. My story dates back to October 4th, 1990. I was a 24-year-old young man, and we were celebrating my brother's upcoming wedding the following day on October 5th. We were out at a local restaurant having pizzas and having some beers. And my father was there, my grandfather, family, friends. It was rather subdued, but we were drinking. And my brother's best man at that point had driven up from Virginia, and he had arrived at the restaurant while we were still there. While he arrived, we all then, after a short time thereafter, we all then decided that we were going to travel to the other side of town, where we could park our cars so that we wouldn't have to drink and drive. But that was a bit faulty because we had already been drinking, and when I made the decision to hop in the car with my brother's best man, who had driven a Porsche, and I was intrigued by that car, I decided to go with him, and he was legally intoxicated. That was the last thing that I remember, was making the decision to hop into that car that night. From that point forward, what happened was, as the driver of my car was traveling along a windy, wet road, he made a decision to try to pass somebody. And in doing that, he lost control of the car, and the car fishtailed, and ultimately it slammed into the side of it slammed into a telephone pole on my side of the car, and we literally wrapped around the pole. My injuries were very significant. I'm a very lucky man. I'm alive. Specifically, I had a traumatic brain injury. I had a fractured skull, broken ribs, shoulder, and my legs bore the brunt of the impact. I was pushed up and over the stick shift, and the stick shift snapped in half, and that's essentially what nearly severed both of my legs. In the hour or near hour that it took them to get me out of the car, a Lifestar helicopter was called, and I was fortunate I didn't bleed to death and that my jeans acted as a tourniquet in keeping the blood inside of my body. I was flown by Lifestar helicopter to a local hospital where I actually still kept my leg for, both of my legs for about 10 days. After the 10th day, my fever got so life-threatening that the doctor, due to infection, that the doctor decided that they had to amputate my left leg just above my knee, and they may eventually have to amputate my right leg. Well, they amputated my left leg, and my fever subsided, and I woke up. When I woke up, I took a look down, and I saw that I had no left leg, and my right leg was very badly damaged to the point that it was nearly unrecognizable. I was in shock. I had no picture in my head of what had happened, and I was quite traumatized, physically, emotionally, spiritually, for sure. It took me an awful long time to finally come to terms with my loss. It took me some years to finally get myself back up on my feet, and it took me nearly 23 years before I decided I finally would like to share my story in an effort to help. I really felt after a while a strong responsibility to share my story so that I could hopefully help others make better decisions. So I was very thankful when I approached MAD that they were there with open arms and welcomed me, and they allowed me a venue and a vehicle to share my story and to heal. And for that, I am really incredibly thankful, and I never really thought it would help me heal in the manner that it has. So I'm very, very thankful. I never really wanted to be that guy in front of a group of people. That being said, this is larger than me, and I finally recognize that, and I'm very thankful that I'm able to share my story.
Oh, John, thank you so much. It's stories like this are amazing. We serve 300,000 victims a year, and unfortunately we lose over 10,000 people in drunk driving crashes. I encourage you, John said 3 things. Healing, he wanted to be impactful. He felt as though it was his responsibility to go in. He needed his own healing time, but even after 23 years, he came to MAD. And I will tell you one thing about MAD is that you will always have a place here. What John does is speaking to large groups all the time. It has helped his healing. It has helped tell people the dangers of drinking and driving. So I thank you. I thank you for joining us tonight, joining us today. And I encourage you. Matt encourages you. I encourage you. John encourages you that if you do have a drunk driving story, we want you to tell it. We want you to place it right here on Facebook. We want you to upload your own video, try to make it short, but use your own words on what has happened to you and the impact that it has had on your life. Upload your video to the hashtag #MyDrunkDrivingStory and help us, please, spread the word about how this 100% preventable crime impacts so many of us. I look forward to seeing the videos. I look forward to posting them on social media. We want to help you, and always remember that you have a place at MAD at any time. Thank you so much for joining us today.